All right. So with that said, why don't we move on to our, I guess, somewhat fun SALT segment?
Yeah.
The only reason I would say it's fun is because it gives me an opportunity to dunk on probably my least favorite Democratic politician, Nancy Pelosi. I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. Like, out of every establishment, corporatist Democrat, she is the worst, just like completely out of touch with the average American. And every time I hear her speak, that's my bias. Okay. I'm being clear about my bias here.
Yeah.
But let me go ahead and give you guys the details of like the latest annoying thing that Nancy Pelosi did. So Nancy Pelosi claimed that she was very much against Democratic primary challengers to Democratic incumbents. That's why she was so salty toward members of the squad, Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. Just hated what they did because, it supposedly jeopardizes a Democratic seat in the House. Well, now, she made a curious decision in endorsing a Democratic challenger, primary challenger, in the Senate to Senator Ed Markey, of course, the Democratic incumbent. And when there was backlash, she decided to defend her decision to endorse Joe Kennedy III. Now, Pelosi said that Markey's campaign had crossed a hallowed line by running a negative campaign against the Kennedy dynasty. Let's hear what she had to say.
And I'm a big supporter of people in the House. You can ask my colleagues. My loyalty is to them. When Joe Kennedy came to the Congress, he brought with him a great commitment to America's working families, the courage to always act upon it, and the humility to always learn. In the 2018 election, he recognized that in others and traveled the country to help us win the House. That's why so many of our freshman members are endorsing him as well, and so many of our other members as well. I wasn't too happy with some of the assault that I saw made on the Kennedy family, and I thought, Joe didn't ask me to endorse him, but I felt an imperative to do so.
I felt an imperative to do so. God, there's so many things to talk about with this story. But real quick, Nando, before you jump in, what is she talking about when she says that she wasn't happy with the assault on the Kennedys? She was referring to an ad that Ed Markey put out, which I thought was a fantastic ad. Amazing. And we're going to show you a snippet of it right now.
Green New Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey introduced their Green New Deal
to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process.
We got to absolutely crush Donald Trump in November. But if we're going to end this era of chaos, that won't be enough. We got to make sure President Biden signs the Green New Deal. We can't wait.
You got to have folks in the United States Senate who are willing to stand up for working people. That's who Ed Markey is. I need Ed Markey in the United States Senate.
We asked what we could do for our country. We went out. We did it. With all due respect, it's time to start asking what your country can do for you.
How dare he attack the Kennedy dynasty? How dare he?
The hallowed line
that
John F. Kennedy said about how that's not what you can do for your whatever, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, the funniest thing about this whole Pelosi endorsement thing is that according to the Markey campaign, at least, they outraised Joe Kennedy 3-1 after Pelosi endorsed him. Like, Pelosi's brand is no one likes her. Like, no one likes her outside of the most insane kind of resistance libs. Like, no one likes her. Her brand is absolutely toxic. So it's fun to see it backfire right in their face.
She showed off her two $12,000 refrigerators as the pandemic had already started.
Oh, yeah.
As tens of millions of people had already been laid off. And she's like, let me show you my ice cream in my fancy kitchen. Of course her brand is toxic. So, maybe she did a giant favor to Ed Markey.
Yeah.
But look, she hates progressives in Congress.
Yes.
She absolutely hates them. For her, is she really offended about the Kennedy dynasty being attacked? Maybe. But I think that, Ed Markey co-authored the Green New Deal with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He represents a brand of lawmaking that Pelosi absolutely despises. And then get a load of this. This is also, part of the story that just blew me away. So the Washington Post reported that in an official statement, Pelosi, 80, she's 80, signaled that it's time for a new crop of leaders who would represent this party's future. A shot at Markey, who's 74. He's younger than her, who has been in Congress for 44 years.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you serious right now? She has no shame at all. It's amazing.
The thing that also kind of bothers me about this whole thing, and there was a very good Jacobin debate between Dustin Guastella and Richard Yesselson on confrontation versus collaboration with the Democratic Party. Ed Markey is the sort of perfect example of someone who did what a progressive is supposed to do, of working within the system, not blowing anyone up too much, maintaining kind of good, strong, progressive ideals. He's not like Bernie or anything like that. I mean, I don't want to say he's the best senator of all time, but he was kind of a solid progressive, and he kind of worked within the party, never rankled the leadership too much. And now they're trying to murder him. So it just goes to show that you get no brownie points for collaboration. You really don't. They will turn on you in a second. And Joe Kennedy of all people, I mean, I think it was Felix Biederman on Chapo that called Pete Buttigieg a Vichy millennial, and kind of a fake millennial. But at least I can recognize Pete Buttigieg's hustle. Pete Buttigieg has real hustle. Joe Kennedy doesn't even have that. He is a Vichy millennial with nothing. He just has nothing. He doesn't even have the psychopathic drive that Pete Buttigieg has. So I would love to see him lose so much.
Did you watch Pete Buttigieg's speech during the DNC?
No, I didn't see it.
He always has this crazed look in his eyes.
Yeah. No, he's a total psychopath.
Yeah, definitely. Well, not to get too sidetracked, let's also talk about the fact that Nancy Pelosi loves raising money. I mean, she has branded herself as a master legislator. She's not a master legislator, but she is good at raising money.
Oh, yeah.
And she loved, exploiting the pain and suffering caused by the Trump administration in order to raise money for the DNC, for the Democratic Party. And she did, in that video that we showed you, reference how Kennedy had helped to raise some money for the Democratic Party. The Intercept wrote about this, so I want to give you some details on that. During the 2018 midterm cycle, Kennedy raised nearly $5 million for other Democratic candidates and helped his party flip the House. During the cycle, he served as a Mid-Atlantic and New England regional vice chair for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and stumped for candidates in at least 15 states and D.C., including battleground races in Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And so he's willing to play ball. He's willing to raise the money for the party, for candidates within the party. And that's also one of the motivating factors behind why Pelosi is doing this. I honestly do think that at the heart of it, there's the ideological disagreements. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi absolutely despises the Green New Deal. She hates the fact that AOC joined members of the Sunrise Movement in protest in Nancy Pelosi's office early on in 2018. So, or I should say early on in AOC's first, term. And so, yeah, I just think that she is the kind of person who will fight progressives, will fight, socialist ideology harder than any awful Republican. Yeah. She would much rather have Trump in office than have Bernie Sanders in office. That's who Nancy Pelosi is, and that's why I can't stand her. And she's just not effective in fighting back against Trump at all. I mean, look at what's gone down during the pandemic. This is the opposition party? Really? It's just absolutely devastating.
And don't forget the immortal words of Nancy Pelosi when asked about the Green New Deal for the first time. She goes, "Oh yeah, it's that green dream," or whatever they're calling it. Just absolutely dismissive. So if you don't think that that's at the heart of this, it's pretty obvious what's going on.
definitely. And I want to just mention one final part of this, which is just 2 tweets that give you a sense of who Kennedy is and who Markey is. So Kennedy's tweet on healthcare. Not a single patient should be forced to fight off medical bankruptcy in the midst of a global health pandemic without a lawyer by their side. And here's
That's just
Ed Markey.
Democrat brain, to the max. It's Democrat brain. It's a perfect example of Democrat brain.
And then Ed Markey, no one should ever have to face medical bankruptcy. Yeah. We must eliminate all out-of-pocket medical costs. Yeah, bingo. That's what we want.
There is no choice. I'm not from Massachusetts. I went to college in Massachusetts, but I don't vote in Massachusetts. If I were, my vote would be for Ed Markey easily. There is no choice.